Welcome to the 28th in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline its first age-friendly city in New England. This was a result of the work of the Brookline Select Board, town departments, Brookline residents, and Brookline Can, provided the leadership. Brookline Can is a volunteer organization that works in the interests of residents of all ages. Today, as you know, we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, and COVID-19 has isolated many of us. A key to support during this isolation is the technology that we're using. Our guest today is Seay, who provides support for older adults needing assistance with technology. John describes himself as a retired computer dabbler. He provided tech support for large customers of IBM and Lotus. And he also worked for the Cooper Community Center, and he taught for them, and the Dimmock Community Health Center, and Massachusetts United Way, and other organizations. John designed and maintained Microsoft Access databases for people making a difference, for the New England Aquarium, and for Brookline Can. He volunteers as the Brookline Can webmaster. Before COVID-19, when it was possible, he would be at Center Communities of Brookline, helping older adults with phones, laptops, and tablets. He creates, for us, the opening and closing credits, and he's a key member of our production team, both technologically and content-wise. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, before you jump in, I think I'm gonna get my little piece in. Because I'm knowledgeable, fairly knowledgeable, not like you, but fairly knowledgeable technologically. But I have a story to tell. A couple of months, I was posting for a couple of months with no reactions on Facebook. No positive reactions, no negative reactions. And I thought I must be really dull. So I explored Facebook's rules and controls just to see what was happening. And I discovered that I had inadvertently narrowed my audience. I sent a post to my wife by changing my audience to my wife once, but I forgot to change it back. For 2 months, she was the only recipient of my posts. I fixed it and asked for confirmation. And the crowd roared back laughing. So that's my successful technology event. As far as apparently even someone with experience like I supposedly have can get waylaid by technology. Okay, let's go to you, and that's enough of me. And see really what we're talking about. What really is the technology we're talking about?
Well, let's divide it into two groups. And here I'm talking about technology used by older adults. And I'm primarily drawing on my experience helping people at Center Communities of Brookline, which is a independent living facility for older adults. So we'll divide it into computers and phones. If somebody comes to me and asks what computer they should get, I always start by saying, what do you have now? And if they've got a Windows machine or a Mac machine, that's what they should stick with. There's really no reason for them to change, and a lot of reasons not to. But occasionally you have somebody who will say, I've never used computers, but I'd like to have the ability to be on Facebook so I can see pictures of my grandchildren. I would like to have the ability to send and receive emails. And there I usually recommend an iPad. iPads are easy to use, and most people take to them very quickly.
Not easy. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Not easy for me.
The main problem with an iPad is that they use this virtual keyboard that nobody likes to type on. They're not easy to type on. But you can buy a separate keyboard for an iPad, and that's an option. But if they're looking for a real laptop computer and they haven't previously used Windows or Macs, I usually recommend Chromebooks. Chromebooks are easy to use. They're maintained in the cloud, so they get updated automatically. It's a really nice operating system, unless you're used to something else. And they started off very cheap, and they're still cheaper than the equivalent Windows or Mac machine, but they're starting to come out with some very high-end Chromebooks. So you can easily spend as little as $200 or $300 or $1,000 and up. So that's computers. Now let's talk about phones. You really have to divide it between smartphones and
and flip tops. Yeah, right. I've seen
the phones that are made for seniors. So let's talk about the phones that are made for seniors. This is a flip phone. A lot of them are. If the senior is using them for just the old-fashioned, no smartphone functions where they're just dialing and answering calls, they're great. They have big keys. The displays have big numbers. But the problem comes with they also have smartphone functions and some things that people really want to use, like just keeping your contact information and even web browsers and various apps like a smartphone. The problem there is the interface is fussy. You can see the several buttons. They don't have touch screens typically. The cheaper ones don't. And the buttons change function when they're, depending on what else is going on the phone, what app you're using and what you're trying to accomplish. And then the buttons get confusing for people. The one in the center is a five-way. It goes up, down, left, right, and there's a button in the center. And people with dexterity problems have trouble using it because it's not very big. And people who haven't used them before find them confusing. So if you can afford it, I would recommend using a smartphone, and they have the same pluses and minuses of any smartphone. But the ability to press on icons and to have well-formed apps for the purpose that you're using makes them a good choice.
So just a question: if people have used remotes, I'm looking at that OK, and the one in the center. If they've used things like remotes for TV, there should be some experience with that, right? Or do you ever run into people that don't do that even?
You got to understand who I'm seeing. The people who aren't having trouble with their devices don't come down and see me.
Okay.
So there may very well be a lot of people who take to them just fine. The ones that I see are people who say, I can't do this, I can't do that. Can you show me how to do this? And those are the kind of problems that I see.
Got it. Okay, so that's the devices, or at least an overview. What about some of the services and things that we use day in and day out? Are there issues involved with those, and what do you actually run into? So for instance, the email and my thing, social media. I mean, they can't, not everybody will do what I did, but you've got, and now we're on Zoom, we live on Zoom. So I guess that's pretty important. So what's happening with those kinds of things?
Let's start with email. Almost everybody who has email has the ability to receive an email, send an email, probably download a picture, maybe even attach a picture. What they run into problems with is managing their messages. Very often what we have coming to us in the room that we use is people saying, can you help me delete my emails?
Right.
The other problem that we have is people who said, my daughter sent me an email 3 days ago and I haven't gotten it. We see that all the time. And generally that's because they've either lost their Wi-Fi signal or didn't know how to turn it on, because that's not something they think about. It's email is just sort of magic, and it normally works for them. And when it stops working, they come to us and ask for help. Again, we don't see the people who don't need the help. There are probably plenty of people who have those problems and they fix them on their own, and we never see them.
Right. Yeah, I lose emails. I think they're deliberate with some people, but,
yeah, we don't have so much problem with people losing email. We have time for a story. I will tell you a story about somebody who lost everything. We had a woman come in with one of these dumb phones. I think it was a Jitterbug, and she said, I can't find any of my emails, and I looked at my contacts, and these aren't my contacts. You know, I've had this phone for a couple of years, and all of a sudden it stopped working. Any idea what was wrong, Matt? Can you guess? Not a clue.
Not a clue.
Well, I got suspicious. So I said, because everything looked wrong. Everything that was there, just everything looked wrong. So I said, what's your phone number? I took out my phone and I called her number. The phone was right there between us. Didn't ring. And then somebody answered. And the somebody was some kind of aide who was had been at the at Center Communities. The woman that I was talking to knew who she was, and the aide knew that they had swapped phones. They had identical looking phones, and one of them walked away with the wrong one.
That I would not have guessed.
And the woman that was there for help would not believe it. Absolutely would not believe it. I was talking to the aide, and she said, yeah, I have her phone. She has my phone. I'm going to be in, you know, over the weekend and we'll trade back. She wouldn't believe it. She says, no, this is my phone and it doesn't have any of my stuff on it.
Okay, so my story's not quite as bad as I thought.
So let's talk about social media.
Yeah.
Most of the users that I see of social media are, well, let's talk about who their Facebook friends are. Their Facebook friends are probably their sons and daughters. And the sons and daughters are sharing pictures of their grandchildren, because that's what parents of young children do. They take pictures of their children. I have some young friends who are, you know, actually a son and daughter-in-law friends of mine. That have kids. I see all sorts of pictures of their kids. Occasionally the husband makes it into the pictures. The wife never does because she's running the camera. And that's what the people that I see are using. They may not be posting. They are not sophisticated users of Facebook, probably aren't using Twitter at all. They may use Instagram, but it keeps them very happy and very in touch with their grandchildren.
Right.
You asked about Zoom. Zoom is easy to use, as you know, because you're a user.
Absolutely.
And people take to it very quickly. They're able to join meetings and take part in meetings. That part isn't hard. But what is hard is for them to get things right so that they look good. You and I have both made an effort to have the proper lighting and to be centered in the camera. But let me show you what I have trouble talking and working this at the same time, particularly if I'm not on the right window. Let me show you what people look like on iPads.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just changing the
Your light,
picture here.
I just want to comment while you're doing that. My light is much better. Your light is much better than mine.
I'm
I mean,
sitting in front of a window, so it's natural light, which is probably the best. So I took this this morning. This is what people look like on iPads if they don't do anything else. The iPad camera is very awkwardly placed, and people hold it horizontally, and mostly what you see is people's necks, and they're looking way off to the side and with no eye contact whatsoever. It's not hard to fix, but not many people do this. What you have to do is make an effort, and all I did was center my face and looked into the camera. But you hardly ever see anything that looks like that.
so the other thing I find on Zoom is when you run into Wi-Fi or Zoom issues as far as in any way, as far as load, people freeze. The words don't necessarily match the mouth. When they respond, it feels like a fast response, but it's you would think they think they're responding to you, but you've seen a delay, and you don't necessarily match up the response to the other. Is that just practice or training to deal with, or are there anything we can do in our houses to improve things?
Well, you can, the best thing you can do is probably have strong Wi-Fi. Now, I'm not using Wi-Fi. I've actually got my desktop computer with its camera and microphone attached to the router via wire. So I shouldn't have any Wi-Fi problems. But the two kinds of problems you see on Zoom, and this doesn't apply to old people, this is everybody, is just not making the effort to look and sound good, and Wi-Fi problems. And so you see people breaking up and the screen's freezing. And I don't think the older adults have any more or fewer problems than the younger adults.
Okay.
Finally, let's talk about privacy and security. Scams for older people are common. Younger people can get taken in by them too. It seems that older people are more trusting and less suspicious, but let me tell you a story, and you know this story because you got the same email. We both have a mutual friend named Ruth, and I got an email from Ruth, and this is what it said in its entirety. The subject was quick response, and it says, "Hello, how are you doing? Please, can I ask you a quick favor? Thank you. Thanks very much, Ruth." Well, that doesn't sound like Ruth. If I know Ruth well enough that if she wanted to ask me a favor, she just asked the favor. She wouldn't ask permission to ask the favor first. So I looked a little bit more carefully, and sure enough, it looked like it came from Ruth. But if I replied to it, which I didn't do, it went to somebody else. Who knows what they were trying to pull off or what they were trying to accomplish. I also got some months ago a very official looking letter from Wells Fargo Bank asking me to log in and update my statistics. Well, this was an easy one because I don't have an account with Wells Fargo Bank, but it was very official looking. And if I had had an account, I could very well have gone to a screen that looked like Wells Fargo's sign-in screen, given my password, which would then have given somebody access to my Wells Fargo account if I had one.
Yeah,
and
that's
my message is, if it looks the least little bit suspicious, be suspicious.
right.
And look into it more deeply. If you look at the emails you get from people, it's almost always obvious that it comes from the people that say it comes from. Either it refers to an event that you are both mutually, it's a subject that you're pursuing. And when you get the one like I got from Ruth, which could come from anybody, it probably didn't come from Ruth. So what did I do? I didn't reply to it. I forwarded it to Ruth, and I said, "Did you send this? Looks suspicious to me." And she said, "No, I did not." And said, oh no, somebody's hacked my email account. Well, probably not.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably they just spoofed her email account, which is very easy to do. Found an email address that was valid and used it as their email address. And uh, it's it's easy to do. It's hard to do undetectably for somebody who knows what to look for. But most people don't know what to look for. There's a whole bunch of stuff in email that gets hidden because it's just plain ugly. But there's a lot of information, including everywhere it came from and everything it passed through. And we hide it because we don't want to look at it. But if you know enough to look at it, you can probably tell. It's harder to do, but not impossible, to spoof email and make it undetectable so that everything looks good. But most of the scammers aren't that sophisticated.
Right. But it's, look, they're working on it though. They may get better.
There's technology under investigation where you can get a certified email, which essentially says we certify that it came from the person that says it came from. But that technology is, who knows if it'll ever be widely adopted. It could be done, but we'll see.
Right. So the rule is verify rather than trust.
If you're suspicious, be suspicious. You know, chances are, if it doesn't ring any bells, it's probably fine.
Yep. So what are the challenges when you're trying to work with these people? Do you run into any, what kinds of issues do you run with? Do you run into?
The very biggest issue is resistance to the use of technology. Anybody of any age who is properly motivated can learn the technology that they need. But I get a lot of people who say, oh, I've never done this before. It's frustrating. I don't like to use it. And you occasionally run into people who won't use it. You and I both know a person who won't use email and is kind of proud of the fact that she doesn't use email. Well, it makes it hard for the rest of us to communicate with her, but that's her choice. The people that I see at Center Street, they're trying, and they may be frustrated, and they may not have the, they may not be willing to stick with a problem long enough to solve it. And that's tough to work with. And what I try to do is just be patient with them.
Yeah,
the other one that happens to me kind of frequently is somebody who comes down and says, my son or daughter gave me this phone. Tell me everything I need to know about it. Well, nobody knows everything about the phone they own. And so I turn it around and I say, what do you want to do with the phone? And the answer comes back, I don't know. My son or daughter gave it to me. I don't know what I want to do with it. So we try to drill down because they all, most people start with the same things.
Sure.
They want to surf the web. They want to send and receive email. They may want to use Google Maps because Google Maps are fun.
Right.
And I show them those things.
Google Earth.
But the technology itself isn't that much of a problem.
Yeah. Google Earth is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about, you were mentioning the operating systems. Is there a question between the Apple and Android, or is
no?
It doesn't matter.
Well, not Apple and.
What is Jitterbug? Wait a minute. What you said, Jitterbug. What is Jitterbug?
Jitterbug is one of the phones. I showed you a picture that wasn't a Jitterbug of the flip phone. It's marketed to seniors. It's very similar to the one I showed you, only it doesn't have the four-way switch. So I wanted to show the four-way switch. It's got an up and down button. They're inexpensive. They can be subsidized. You can get them from AARP. I don't particularly like them if you want to use them for more than just old-fashioned. I dial the phone number and I talk on the phone and I answer the phone. Even if you want to use contacts, the interface is a little bit kludgy for a lot of people.
But in today's world, people start wanting to see pictures, don't they? Not all, I guess. I know people who don't. But people want to actually look and see somebody very often. So things like FaceTime or other technique, or Zoom obviously can do it. But
Right.
yeah, so I don't know. I guess I would want, unless there was a reason, if I knew someone who wanted it, I would encourage them to get a phone they could use for visual usefully. But I guess that changes the prices and things too.
Yeah. I would rather have somebody use a smartphone. I think that's easier for people to use, but they're a lot more expensive. So the Jitterbugs and similar phones, they have a definite place. And if that's what you want to use them for, then they're fine.
So I'm an older adult. I have various issues with technology. Maybe I think I know a lot because I have a smartphone, but I've never used either Zoom or social media. But I want to now check on my kids. I want to check on some of the relatives. And in fact, I've been contacting more people than before, and I'd like some better methods of getting to them. Who do I contact to tell me what to do? Is it you alone, or is it, who do I talk to?
Well, it's not me. I don't do this for a price. I do volunteer work occasionally. There are lots of businesses out there who will provide either classes or one-on-one services. The senior center is probably the best place to start. Before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, they had sessions where people could sign up for one-on-one help. Volunteers would come in and sit with people, very much like as I do at Center Communities, and work with a laptop, work with a smartphone, work with a tablet, and show people how to use them. They're continuing to do that kind of thing.
Right.
And if you call, let me see if I can do this share screen thing again.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Or do we have it in the credits? I'll have to ask.
It is in the credits.
Well,
So this is a picture of the senior center with the phone number that you can call, 617-730-2777. That's their main number. And they'll put you in contact with somebody who knows who is doing this. Now, they're doing things these days with Zoom when they can. They will probably do some one-on-one
right.
sharing. I got to find how to. Did that screen show up with the senior center on it?
Nope.
I always forget to press the second button. That's why I couldn't get rid of it. There it is.
There we go. Now we've got your desktop.
Oh.
Oh, I'm so glad, John.
Yeah, see, this picture is in two places on my screen, and I gave you the wrong one. That one should be the right one.
No, that's great. That's it. Looks good. Nice senior center. It's a great picture.
Anyway, it's hard to do phone support. I never actually did phone support, but I took all the training at Lotus for the people who do phone support. It's very hard to do because people will inadvertently lie to you. And I have a story I could tell about that, but I think we're running out of time, so I won't. But it's much easier for the person providing the support if they can share the person's screen and see what's going on the screen. And they're trying to do that. And they may even be doing some in-person. I know the senior center is open on a very limited basis by appointment, and they're doing things like scrubbing down tables and taking people's temperatures when they come in. So if you call that number, they can tell you exactly what's available. But I know that they are continuing to provide support on a remote basis. Plus, if you Google it, there are any number of services that you can go to and get some help for a fee.
Right. And they're putting on you're right, lots of virtual forums. So is Brookline Can, of course, and so are others, and so are other organizations and everything. So it's it's certainly worth reaching out. But so they do need, if they need that help, if they have any doubts and say, am I missing something? I would recommend that they call the Seeing Center if they're not now seeing virtual programs that they're interested in, because there's so many around. And if you don't know how to do it and you're missing out because of that, that's a problem. So I want to thank you, John, for being a guest. And you can be a guest anytime you want. All right, stop.
That must be your timer.
Yes, I stopped. I want to thank you for being a guest and for the work you do on the show too. Let's add that. So
stay tuned for the credits.
Yeah, and everybody else, this will be rebroadcast with all the things in between. And it'll also be on YouTube and Brookline Can website, because I know the webmaster. And Brookline Can Twitter and Facebook, because I know the account managers for there. And thank you all for watching.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.